No, I have to monitor on an app, the Boxcast app. When we staged those cameras for both here and the chambers, we turned off all the audible alerts, because I didn't want people being freaked out when the thing started to make noise or turn the light on. So it's all through an app, so I'm able to see the streams. That's why I've watched every committee meeting across the city since COVID started.
Oh, wow. You have a plethora of knowledge.
It's been some fun times at home, especially when I put them on the big screen TV and let the whole family watch.
Here they are, the cast of characters.
All right, it looks like it's 6. Let's see here. Okay, we're live.
All right, let's call this meeting to order. It's 6 p.m. Any public comments? Anybody have anything to add? Okay. We're gonna go, let's go around the table and introduce everybody, and then we'll set the meeting.
Finance Director Ben Daish.
Staff Accountant Ariana Macedo.
Joe Fitzgerald, Project Manager.
Richard Leja, 3rd Ward Alderman.
James Frank, IT Director.
Ruth Green, City Administrator.
Scott Lennon, 1st Ward Alderman. We're gonna excuse Alderman Carmichael. He had an emergency, he will not attend. So let's go right into the discussion of the IT budget and some of the initiatives and things that are coming up this year this next year, 2024. So Jim, you wanna?
Yep.
Do you wanna, Ben, Jim? What's the start?
Director Frank, please, if you could go over the anticipated expenditures for the 2024 budget.
Sure.
And there's a separate handout that has a lot of information on it.
Yes. Now, when I sat here last year and we started to talk about trends that I was observing in IT in general, we had a brief discussion about significant impacts both with supply chain issues and the additional increased cost for software support and maintenance. Just a general sense of inflation as it applies to IT. 2024 is not showing any signs of relieving that stress. At the same time, we're seeing major projects across the city, from the police department build-outs with the 2 projects to the deployment of body cams to a number of software initiatives that have gone through the process in 2023 and sought and received approval. Now we're down to the nitty-gritty of implementing them and supporting them and building the infrastructure to make sure that they work. So when I put together the primary accounts and lines for the 2024 IT budget, I identified 5 accounts of ours that are going to see the most significant requests for change to respond to the need of the changing dynamic that involves additional increase to our operating expenses. So the little flyer, the spreadsheet that I put together summarizes those accounts and the major initiatives. If we want to start with 1650-300, that's my professional services line item. A couple of years ago, we saw some staff departures, people that have been with me since day one building our infrastructure, and I decided that in terms of ensuring the continuity of operations, that we adopt a process for staffing that involves complementing our internal resources with professional expertise on the outside. So when we look at, Ben, if you had gone through the last couple of years of this account, you'll see it trending upwards in terms of what we budget, because with that process of complementing our staff, we have seen some relationships build up to help support the core environments of our operation. So when we look at 2024, there are 3 projects that are relatively new. We don't have any commitment to them per se in terms of contracts or exact plans or timelines, but they're important to discuss. One of them is the MDM solution, which is a mobile device management solution. That is a system that we're going to look into purchase for the fleet of tablets that run our police department. So all the devices that are in the field with our police officers, they require tablets. And one of the requirements that we've learned of from the state of Illinois to make the chosen CAD RMS vendor compliant with the state police is the implementation of this MDM solution to manage these mobile devices. So these are costs that we're going to have to bear at some point. With this year, we're trying to redirect these funds to budget them from IT so we have more direct control over the negotiation and the implementation of those contracts, as opposed to just being a passenger in terms of waiting for them to come along. So we decided that we wanted to kind of steer that ship, and that's going to be a project that we definitely recognize cost for in 2024. The next one is the Office 365 conversion. Now, for years, as long as I've been involved, we've run our own email environment in the city, Exchange, product provided by Microsoft. They've signaled that at the end of 2025, they are retiring all of their on-premise customers. And what does that mean? That means that we can still run our stuff ourselves, but we have no options for support. So we have to start looking at migrating our user base, and we're just over 600 users in terms of mailboxes, into 365. And if you've ever been in school lately, or you've been employed, a lot of outside employers are using 365 as a primary platform for centralizing their email. Berwyn's no different. So if we want to stay on board with modern email technologies and security and everything that goes into how dependent we all are on email, we have to begin that process for planning. And these dollars aren't for the actual purchasing of licensing, it's to help us build the infrastructure and manage the support that goes along with designing a mitigation and migration plan to 365. So unfortunately, these things bear new costs that we haven't had to look at yet. And the final piece of that account is the phone system project. Again, much like Exchange, our existing platform provider, Avaya, has decided to end of life and sunset the equipment that we use. We found out that about a year ago when we started to expand our system. So we face a situation now where we have 2 construction projects at the station that are gonna require 10 to 20 to 30 new phones. When all the new offices are built, we can't, no money, there's no dollar amount, we cannot expand our existing system. So we have to look into options. And again, much like all of the trends in IT, everything is moving from a perpetual to a cloud-based license. So some of these, not the engineering costs, but the actual software licenses that are gonna be discussed a little bit later are reoccurring. Professional services are one time, because we're gonna need the outside expertise to help us start that project. The next line that's affected is 5410, the hardware maintenance. This year, with the help of some ARP dollars, we were able to negotiate through NetSync a significant restructuring of our network core. This has been an entire year project that has basically taken the very foundation of our environment and replaced it. The equipment we've been running for close to a decade, we've been able to retire, fix every location, everything around the city. The cost absorbed here are the renewals that we have for those Fiscal devices and the ongoing maintenance. Again, just a bullet point, because it's not a cost that we had to bear last year. We were on the old infrastructure, we're on the new stuff now. We want to make sure that continues to operate. When we go into the next account, 5415, now we're looking at 50,000 for the Office 365 licensing. We're lucky in the sense that we are a government customer, so that provides us the option to become a government tenant with Microsoft. So second to educational discounts, government is the cheapest volume of license that you can have. So for our 600 plus users, that's about the ballpark that we are going to be looking at spending. Again, there's no options to go to a different party because Microsoft is the only provider that provides Office 365. So there are resellers, and we're going to negotiate a couple different bids with various resellers to find out if we can make the best use of those dollars as we move forward. Next account is hardware purchases, 5510. The notable change this year, there's 2 projects that are asterisked. The first is the mobile tablet upgrades for Mark 43. So this connects to the professional services MDF solution. The fleet of laptops in play at the police station and all the vehicles have reached end of life. They've been using a combination of Panasonic Toughbooks and a number of other devices that are built really well, but they come with a $4,000 to $6,000 price tag per each. With the acceptance and the implementation of Mark 43 as the new cloud RMS and CAD system provider, the software is designed to run on a sleek mobile portable tablet. So the hardware costs, the implementation and maintenance costs are much cheaper to do that. Again, we want to make sure that the dollars for this project are put into this department, just so that we can exercise control over the negotiations and the chosen vendor to help supply our fleet of tablets. So we know that that's going to be something that comes along as we're online right around July of next year, 2024, for looking at going live with Mark 43. The scheduled firewall updates, the other bullet point in there. We run a fleet of 9 Fortinet FortiGate devices. Those are the core firewalls that ensure our cybersecurity at all of our physical locations. They are probably the most critical devices, helping us make sure that we're thwarting attacks. And every day we see hundreds of attempts of people, of outside actors trying to get into our resources. So these devices have to be refreshed. The cost to refresh about half of them are coming in there with what we're looking to do for keeping sure that we can carry support and maintenance on our aging fleet of devices. When we go to the next account now, 16-5515. Our antivirus software, we run semantic endpoint protection. It's great software, but it has its limitations for what it can handle collectively when we start to transition more to cloud-based services. So what we call a next-gen AV solution is a next generation or a smarter AI-based antivirus solution. There's a number of them out there. We've been studying the efficiency of trying to be able to implement something like that. And we're hoping that in 2024, we can take some steps to actually begin the process of getting those systems to play to maximize the security of our users and our endpoints. So at the end of the day, it's one of our core missions is to not only provide timely access to information, but ensure the security and the availability of that information. Web proxy solution. So every internet connection here is filtered to make sure that our users are accessing information that is allowable, isn't overly out of line with their position and what they're chosen to do. We have a solution in place that is about 10 years old. It's been very stable for us, but as we increase our core capacity and we speed everything up, because with the advent of cloud-based applications that are being put into line, we have to broaden our internet connectivity. We have to be able to allow for faster speeds and faster connectivity. The solution that's in place now is sort of a boiling point. It's a weak spot in the equation that we need to look at shoring up and expanding to be able to provide more real-time, efficient connectivity across the board.
You know, one thing I have to state is that I really, from a finance position, really have to commend Jim and his team with all the challenges with regard to cybersecurity and the city's ability to obtain cyber coverage.
Without an increase.
And without an increase. All the efforts that Jim is presenting here is essential for positioning the city to be one step ahead of everybody else. I think that's important to bring out.
Definitely.
Well, the education of our users through the cyber awareness training, the staying on top of firewall upgrades, making sure our antivirus definitions are updated, because an antivirus product, even on your home computers, is only as good as the definitions that are behind it. The definitions are the intelligence that help identify what is a bad program versus a good program. So having a software and just installing it and not maintaining it will only work until a threat comes along that's not identifiable by that software. So we want to stay ahead of the active presence out there that's trying to come in and get into our systems and hijack them and cause all kinds of problems. Realistically, you know, we carry large coverage. It's over 10 million for cyber security. That's a realistic number, because if Berwyn was to face a major cyber event where all of our data and operations were locked up, how do you put a figure on recovery from that? You know, there's points now where we have burps in our operations, just a cable is cut or something happens physically to our environment, and we can see losses in 6 figures per day when operations are interfered with. So it's very difficult to understand the ramifications of a major event unless you've been through one or you are knowledgeable about what other municipalities, other operations, other organizations have gone through. Literally, people will write blank checks to be able to recover from a situation like that. Money becomes no issue. And I don't want Berwyn to ever be in a position where we have to think about what to do. And in the years I've been in this job, I'm very proud of the fact that we have not had any cyber events, because we have stayed ahead of the course, and we've been able to, we have had localized infections of things. We were able to target them, identify them, and rectify the situations before they cascade out into other scenarios. So it's all thanks to the hard work of my staff, the support of our administrations and our elected officials to have the funding to be able to do these things. It's just a shame that we are seeing some of these vendors that provide these mission critical services adjusting their prices accordingly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, we're seeing some vendors that are coming with a 20 to 25% increase over last year's cost, even though our quantities are not increasing that much. So, but again, how do you go without something like that?
We're not in a position of strength here. It's a captive demand,
Right.
unfortunately.
Now, in network infrastructure, the point I want to discuss here has to do with the Crown Castle body cam infrastructure. I know this is something that came up last night in the police meeting. These are the costs that we budget for the connection of the cameras and the connectivity, the engineering and the networking to actually bring them to Axon.com and Evidence.com to do their syncing. So this doesn't involve the licensing or the actual cameras or what was on the Axon contract. This is all the background, behind the scenes stuff that we have to support to ensure that 200+ cameras can sync 8 hours of high-definition video every day. And that's the volume of bandwidth and data that we're talking about here. It's terabytes of data a day. So we've had to design an infrastructure and support that infrastructure to be able to facilitate that, so that that evidence, those body cam videos can sync up and they become accessible to our evidence team and our department for use, which is going to be tie into Mark 43 and the production of more intelligent police reports that overlay video with just textual narratives. So that's why I wanted to highlight that point on this document, to explain that part of the increase. That's a fixed cost. We're going to have to see that. There'll be some tweaking to that as the projects, the capital projects at the police department complete, because we're looking at the creation of some new large office areas, and some of the body cam infrastructure is going to shift into the new build outs for the police station. So that's the major changes at a high level of what we're looking to do. I'm only hoping that we don't run out of time, because some of these big projects will take months and months and months to put into place. So what I always ask, and why we're trying to move some of these dollars around between 2024 and 2023, is so that we can introduce some administrative control and financial control over the decisions. Because my office is sometimes the subject of decisions being made prematurely by other departments to greenlight projects without thinking about the IT component of it. So in a way, I take that as a compliment, because they assume that it's just going to get done, but it also becomes a headache when 2 or 3 of these things are happening at one time, and we have to kind of rush to find the right funding and infrastructure to make something like this happen.
And more than likely, because of that, in the following year's budget, we will probably see more of an increase also in yours, with even more programs laying out, since you're gonna be dealing with the initial costs of getting everything set up, and once everything is set up through IT, then the following year we'll see the budget increase in the departments, be it the library, police department, fire departments, for the regular maintenance of that software then would go to that. But I believe IT will take in the initial, since you'll be helping with the rollout of everything, making sure everything runs smoothly, and we have what we need for the infrastructure to do it, correct?
Mm-hmm. The bottom line on that is, if we decide to start transitioning more what I call offline processes or manual processes, such as the check stub creation in your office, to a more electronic digital-based process, the software that's going to perform that, the initial seeding, the initial implementation, the initial discussions over technical language and stuff like that will all funnel through my office. And then as that program moves from the implementation to the maintenance phase of its life cycle, it shifts more to the departments that are primarily responsible for those services. In that case, it would be your office, as we start to retire some of those manual processes that I think will end up saving a lot of your staff's time in the volume of offline processes or paper processes that they have to do.
And also on supplies.
And supplies, and depreciation on devices too, because that's the other thing that falls into my supplies category, are all of the ink toner cartridges, the hardware devices that break down in service and support. So the more that we can get electronic, the less of that we have to maintain. And I believe that long-term, moving those processes over are going to result in a net savings for operations, as we depend less on paper and more on electronic data.
Great. Then you want to go through the ledger?
I mean, as far as the financial, Director Frank had highlighted the major drivers of the expenditures, outside of salaries and benefits. The items that he highlighted are the reasons for the 2024 budget increase versus last year's.
I will say that we are not requesting to add any employees, part-time or full-time next year, so we're content with the 8 total that we have on our books now.
Okay.
So is the marketing with you, is that the marketing department in with you?
Marketing and communications.
So where is the marketing?
Communications falls under city administrators.
Yeah, they're not.
Oh, so they're not in this?
No, they are not.
Okay, so they would be with your budget.
They're within my budget, correct?
Correct.
A couple of these line items that we didn't discuss, there's various dues and publications. I'm a member of an IT director consortium. There's an annual fee for things like that. So those are very small, relatively minor organizations that we're members of, just as municipal customers.
What falls under stipends?
Stipends are small salary adjustments that we have for supporting the BDC, because my department also supports the BDC's IT needs. And since they're not directly part of the city, when we started this, if you refer to the BDC contract, there's some stipulations in there about those stipends. That's taken off of the money that we provide them. So we're just accounting for it here as it's distributed to the staff of mine that receive that stipend to support their needs. So we perform their help desk services, we do their computer installations, we handle their phone systems. We wanted to bring the BDC in because there is such overlap so that we're all on the same platform. So for example, with the phones, you don't have to call out. They're a 4-digit extension away. They're part of the same system now. So that's brought their operating costs down and brought our operating costs down. Because before, every time anyone from the city had to talk to the BDC, you'd have to dial out and there'd be a 10, 20 cent, whatever they charge for the phone call. So we decided to incorporate them into our operation technically as if they were another department, even though they exist separately as a separate entity. We just handle all their IT management.
Do we handle their copier leases
We
and things
do,
like that?
we
Okay.
do. It hasn't come up yet, because when Sandy was
Yeah.
here was the last time it still came up.
Exactly.
But when it rolls around next time, we're gonna look at trying to bring that into a larger scale contract. I just don't know what we can do legally without overstepping their
Sure.
independence.
Okay.
I have a question, Jim, since we're we talking about phones.
Mhm.
So each of us aldermen have I don't know what you call it, but it's like a line, a hanging line, right? And that individuals can call into it, it goes into our email. Is there a way that system or another system that we could purchase would allow aldermen to use sort of like a Google number to make calls out so that we're not using our personal lines?
I'm very glad you asked that question.
I just feel like with everything that's changing,
No,
the
and-
less I
and-
wanna give out my personal
The-
number.
What you have is called a phantom voicemail box. And what that means is that's a voicemail box that's configured on our system, right? But there's no physical phone line attached to it, so it's a phantom. So that's why you give out that number, it doesn't ring, it just goes directly to your
Correct.
greeting. And then you receive an email with the caller ID information and you know how to call somebody. It worked well, but it's outdated, right? The Avaya Cloud Office option that we're gonna be upgrading our existing Avaya system to has a built-in smartphone app, and you will receive an extension as if you had a physical phone in the city. So that will come with a DID
Okay,
that it overlays and connects directly to your cell phone. It works with Androids, it works with iPhones.
okay.
So you will basically have that Google number tied to provided by the city, provided to your personal cell phone or whatever device you want. There's a Windows application you can install. There's any number of ways to connect to their collaboration suite. That will provide voicemail, that will provide audio, you can call out from it. So you don't have, if you have minutes on your personal cell phone, you don't have to use that to perform ALDERMANIC duties. And that will actually provide video conferencing, believe it or not.
Oh, wow.
Because everyone wants to get into the market of video conferencing. It's FaceTime and Teams and Google has their video. And this is Avaya's version of FaceTime. It's all part of the license with the extension. And we're licensing all the elected officials that have voicemail boxes now. That will be provided to you as an option for as long as you're in your office.
Okay, and when are we converting over to that?
6 to 8 months it's gonna take to finalize the transition. It'll be in 2024, we don't exactly have a timeline yet, because there's an infrastructure layer to that too, that has to be configured and tweaked before we can deploy the new phones.
Is there any interim alternative till we get to that point?
Let me look into it for you.
Okay.
I mean, there's always the Google phone option, but that would be a private system, that's not
And we
directly
have to
integrated.
purchase it and there's a cost for it.
At one point, Google Voice was free. Now, I don't know
I
if they
remember
still.
when it
Remember
was
when it was
free.
free?
I
'Cause I used to
do
use that
remember when
too,
it was
when I would
free.
sign up for marketing stuff that I didn't want them calling my cell phones. It might still be, but I'll see. Let me
Yeah,
look
I'm
into
looking
that.
for the path of least resistance, right? For those of us who wanna take advantage of it and not use our private lines.
The nice thing would be,
Appreciate
and I don't wanna go too far off on it, but if we went back to like the COVID situation, where we were trying to figure out how to do professional public business, this Avaya solution would allow everybody to get together on a video call that's recorded if we opt to, or streamed, to provide, an emulation of a city council meeting from the confines of your home. And everyone's still there, it's all in real time, and it's transparent. So it takes the Zoom and Boxcast equations out of it if we needed to go to that platform. So that's one of the reasons why we decided to stay with our current vendor, because it provides with the license all these other features that we've never needed to tap before, but might come up again, unfortunately. If there's ever a time you guys get together for a committee meeting, but you can't meet, you'd be able to meet through that system. And I think as long as it's recorded, as long as it's made available to the public, that meets all the requirements for open meetings act.
Great.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions, thoughts?
No.
New business really is just kind of finalizing this as we get closer to 1st of November or so, and go from there. If there's any changes, then we'll see that in the,
Citywide draft.
yeah, the draft that's gonna come out in November.
Yeah.
And then we're gonna see some changes too, as, you know, there's some software, for the body cam that's gonna be in IT, but there are, we talked about this briefly yesterday, there are some expenses in 2023 that we have in the 2023 budget that are handled through the body cam, and then there'll be a portion in 2024, and we'll see that in the draft budget in November as well.
Which we knew, because we voted on that we would start it early. and
Exactly,
which means
right,
we have
exactly.
expenses and
Yep.
stuff like that.
Yeah. But you will see expenditures for the body cams in 2023 under capital projects for the PD.
Capital projects for what?
For the police department
Oh, okay,
in 2023. Okay.
got it, thank you.
Alrighty, I just need a motion to adjourn,
I make a motion that we adjourn.
and I'll second it.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.